Thank you, Josh. Thank you all for being here tonight. So let's start to reflect on this concept of a turning point, right? What is a turning point? Well, I've come to believe that we all have turning points in our life, but every now and then, a turning point comes along and it impacts an entire generation, right? That's what we call a revolution. And there are three things that we usually look out for in any turning point. The first is that it contains a decisive change, right? A radical breakthrough, something which changes the trajectory of humanity. The second thing that we look out for is an impactful consequence, something that changes history so fundamentally that after that turning point, the world looks like a very different place. And the third thing that we look out for is this crossroads of an opportunity, the ability for us as a humanity, as a society, to make some very fundamental decisions about what makes us human, what makes us curious, what makes us kind. This man, who's the CEO of Google, thinks that AI is such a turning point. In fact, he says it's more profound for humanity than the discovery of electricity or fire. And you could see why, right? The three ingredients of a turning point are right there. Firstly, the decisive change. Well, AI is the first non-human object which is capable of taking human-like decisions, of being creative, perhaps one day of having a conscience. The second element that we're going to be looking at is the idea of an impactful consequence. Only this morning I read a study which shows that when patients access GPT, which is one of the simplest language models we have today, their diagnostic outcome is more accurate than when they go to a physical doctor. And when a physical doctor uses ChatGPT to aid that diagnosis, they inject their own bias, and once again, the diagnosis recedes. The third fact in a turning point is also there, the crossroads that we are facing as a humanity. Do we replace human beings in particular tasks and jobs? Is AI intended to replace humans or augment their capability? The decisions which we take in the next 5 years are going to fundamentally alter the trajectory of humanity. So what I'd like to share with you are 4 signs of this turning point that I have seen across my career in artificial intelligence. The first sign is what I like to call the ultra-digitization of everything that's going on around us. Here are a couple of ideas to explain this concept. Firstly, AI can recognize one face among 50 million faces in less than 1 second. Right? Imagine what that means for law enforcement, for finding the proverbial needle in a haystack. Actually, that proverb is almost irrelevant today because AI is built to find the proverbial needle in a haystack, right? One face amongst 50 million in less than a second. Another example of that, AI can read and process 3,000 academic papers, and from it, create new derivative knowledge in less than 9 seconds, right? Let's give you an example. For most doctoral researchers doing their PhD, it takes something between 5 to 8 years to read that amount of papers and create a derivative outcome therefrom. We can now do it in 9 seconds. Can you imagine what that means for drug discovery, for the ability to compact information and to create new outcomes from it? I think it's worth reflecting on this book by Stuart Armstrong, which is called Better Than Us, Smarter Than Us, where he says that AI isn't just better than us in some domains, it is phenomenally and incomparably better than us. And this gap that we have created, this lost space, will never be regained. And maybe We don't need to regain this gap that AI has created. Perhaps our opportunity here is to refocus humanity towards concepts like empathy, creativity, kindness, and allow these tools to do what they're best at, right? Mathematical computations, repetitive processes. Okay, a second concept, which is a sign of this turning point, is what I like to call the concept of dematerialization. So for those of you who have some gray hair, like me, you remember this physical world, right? In which every touch point in the media and entertainment business, hi to the people with gray hair, was something which was very tactile, right? We would touch it, we would press buttons, and that would give us our playback, our entertainment activity. That has changed. We have dematerialized the world into one where the interface is this small piece of glass which we keep in our pocket and we call a smartphone. It is the gateway to AI capabilities, right? The latest iPhone also has an AI element built inside those chips that we store in our pocket. And very often, we fail to realize that that piece of glass in our pocket is 1,000 times more powerful than the supercomputer that NASA had to land man on the moon in 1969, right? 1,000 times more powerful than the Apollo mission, and it's right there in your pocket. But AI is not anymore in just these small physical devices we hold in our pocket. We're moving it into objects, right? So driverless cars, which were just a dream a few years ago, are now fully legislated, managed, and regulated through most of Europe. I was in Austria 2 weeks ago. The Apron bus was autonomous, right, which takes you from the plane to the airport. Most long-haul driving activities in Northern Europe are now fully automated, right? And that is because we are using AI to simulate computer vision, to see street, to see objects, to make decisions on when to turn or how much to accelerate, right? And I think that the next generation just beneath ours will be the last generation that will need to take a driving test, right? And thank God for that, because it's such a tough process and we have so many bad drivers on the road. Maybe it is a good thing that that particular activity gets relegated to an AI tool. Okay, the third concept, the third sign of a turning point is how we are changing the monetization, the commercialization of our industries. I mean, just think about this, right? So what EBO, the company I'm serving as a CEO, does is it looks at very fundamental principles in healthcare, which used to be done by clinical staff, and it is fully automating them end to end. But also what Amazon has done with its ability to predict the next book that you wish to buy or the next product you wish to gift, right? It redefined the industry, the marketplace of retail, and so on and so forth. YouTube in entertainment, of course, ChatGPT in most writing tasks. But now, I'd like you to look at this picture here. So, for those of you who are Maltese, you will immediately recognize this as being the Maltese national anthem, right? The Innu Malti, of course, it is written by a priest. And there are two particular lines which I marked in yellow, which I'll read in Maltese, but then translate in English for the non-Maltese speakers, which say, Rot il-ħnina lis-si tu s-saħħa lil-ħaddiem, which roughly is translated into God grant benevolence to the employer and grant well-being to the employee. Now, I'd like you to reflect on this concept, right? Because if you think of the notion of work, work has been such a fundamental principle of our economy since Karl Marx that all political parties, all our economic policy thinks about these two entities, right? The capitalist, the employer who has access to funds, and the employee who is working to earn wages. But in an age in which artificial intelligence can automate 45% of all tasks which we do today, right? Who is the employee that we are asking God to grant well-being to? AI does not need a trade union, it does not need a sick vacation, it does not require any performance policies, it will always outperform most human activities around repetitive tasks. Now, whilst this might be a scary thought, I think it's the opposite. I think this is the opportunity that we have to redefine what is the worth that human beings bring in a working environment. What is our role as employers when we think about the jobs of tomorrow? What's our role as educators as we design what schooling needs to look like? When we have so much information at our fingertips, that memorizable learning is absolutely useless. And perhaps the last sign of a turning point, a concept which I like to call democratization, or the ability for anyone to access AI goodies. So let's think about the next technology which is about to hit us, right? 6G. At the moment, most of our phones are running on 5G, and that gives us often a very sloppy, slow connection to internet services, to AI services. So we're rolling out 6G in Malta in 2028. So we're approximately, 2.5, 3 years away from 6G. It's going to give us such fast speed access to AI content that, just to give you a comparison so you could sense the speed at which we're going to be traveling, you will be able, on a 6G connection from your phone here, to download 142 hours of Netflix movies in just 1 second. 1 second. And that speed of data, that speed of transfer, is just going to hype up everything again. If you think that this looks like speed, I assure you that the AI tools that you are using today are going to look like toys in 2028. Another idea to show you this concept of democratization is the data footprint that we all leave. So as we use the internet, as we like other people's Instagram content and buy things of Amazon and write our blogs and comment and so on, we're leaving these little data footprints. And what AI tools do is use that information to inform the machine learning process, to train itself to understand you better. And one of the biggest signs of how our world is changing is the amount of data we are all leaving, often without our knowledge or our consent. Every Apple Watch tracking our heart rate, our body surface temperature, all of that data is contributing to this explosion of information. Now, Nature magazine, which is a US scientific journal, states that by the end of the decade, we will be creating 1 yottabyte of new data per year. I'm going to say that again because the word is cool. 1 yottabyte of data. So let me just try and make that practical. Again, for those in the room with gray hair, like me, do you remember those DVD discs which had, 4 gigs on the surface, and then you switch it and there's another 4 gigs at the bottom? So 1 yottabyte is equivalent to, if you had to put the first disk down here on the floor and pile them all up, 1 yottabyte is as much information as from this floor to Mars, right? That's the amount of information we create as a humanity in 1 year, which is being used to train AI models. And then again, the question is this: in business, are we empowered to use that information to improve the predictions we make about the market? Perhaps to change our pricing strategies, perhaps to know our customer better. Is it even ethical to do so? These are big questions that we have ahead of us. Often, they are not answered. So as I conclude, I hope you realize that this conversation is not about technology. This turning point is about change. It's about our ability to realize that what is happening ahead of us, in front of our eyes, is one of the biggest transformations society has seen in the last 100 years. So I'd like to end up with this very last thought about education. So I'm a runner, and my running buddy, her name is Becky, it's the girl on the left, bottom left, is an educator. And she's been teaching for many, many years. And whenever she speaks about the performance of her students, she always mentions that from her many years of experience, the only single ingredient in education which is well correlated to success is the ability to give children confidence, right? Not maths, not numbers, not memorable information, confidence, right? Because confidence leads children to generate courage. And I think courage is one of those most important skills that we need in today's world. The courage to be kind, the courage to stand up and be counted and say, yes, we could do it technically, but no, we won't, because the ethical considerations are incorrect. So whenever I have these conversations with Becky about education and how it must transform, I realize how broken our education system is, how poorly it is preparing this next generation for a very different world. And I've come to believe that today, the four most important ingredients that we need in our education system all start with the letter C, and they're these. Firstly, critical thinking, right, which is the ability to think outside of the box, to solve those problems which are extremely complex that we have ahead of us. Secondly, creativity, because creativity is the innate human expression of intelligence. GPT and similar AI models will never provide the creative output that humans have. That spark, that degree, which is so close to our soul, to our humanity, that is a learned skill which we must pass on. The third concept is communication. Because I believe in today's society, if we are unable to frame a complex problem in simple statements and stand up on stage, as I am doing now, and share that idea, we're going to be in trouble. Because technology can communicate very effectively. So our job as humans is to make sure that that communicative capability remains solid. And lastly, collaboration. Because perhaps the big challenges that this world has around sustainability, around global warming, about biodiversity, about nuclear threat, the only way we will solve these problems is in true human collaboration. Yes, AI will assist in modeling these scenarios, but it is the collaboration of people which will change the world. So, when we talk about technology, and when we talk about artificial intelligence, I think we'll get a much better grip on the topic if we realize that digital is not about technology. Sounds like a paradox, but digital is about people. It's about culture. It's about creativity. It's about thinking. And that's why I think we are in one of the most important turning points that humanity will ever face. And that's exactly why that the future will belong not to those individuals here who will wait for the trend to hit them, but who are brave enough to innovate. Thank you very much.